Hello, everybody. Welcome to One My Conversation with your host, Skid. I'm here with author Ashley Michelle, who wrote a book, Finding Strength Through Tragedy. And welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you being here and talking about this stuff. So before we get into what happened about 8 years ago and the crime you survived, you have talked about where you have to go back to where trauma started originally in your book. So can you take us
Absolutely.
through
Yeah.
that?
In order to heal properly, you have to go through every single layer of trauma that has happened to you in your life. So I'll start at childhood. Pretty much, it was like a lot of neglect for me. And it was a lot of where my parents kind of surrounded their lifestyle around their second born. And I was just kind of left out to like hang out by myself all the time. And I was told how, that I wasn't good enough and I was never enough for them. So that kind of hurt. And my biological father, he was actually extremely abusive. He slapped me across the face and called me effing stupid. So just a lot of emotional and psychological abuse for sure. And I think that that made me very vulnerable. And I picked a lot of toxic and bad relationships for myself moving on in life. In high school, I was teased like you wouldn't believe. I was pushed into lockers. I had somebody that came and attacked me and punched me in the face. And then I got to college and I met my first boyfriend. And in that instant, he was extremely abusive, both emotionally, physically, verbal, emotionally. There were times where he would bring out his knife and threaten me. There were times where he threw me into walls. And then from then on, I just got into more and more relationships that were just not great. And
So
mhm.
with the childhood, how old were you when that started? When that started happening with your parents?
Well, my parents were both very toxic people for one another. And there was a lot of yelling and screaming. He would punch holes in walls. It probably like when I was 3, 4 years old. Like there were times I remember saying to Susan, who is my biological um, mother, I would tell her, I was like, don't tell him what I, if I was bad or whatever, because I knew that there would be consequences for that. And I never wanted to face him. I never wanted to be around him. I never wanted to be alone with him. Um, and that's
Was it just verbal and physical? Was there anything else, or you don't want to talk about anything else except for?
uh, he was just very abusive, and he jumped from job to job all the time. Like he wasn't a stable individual.
And so with your mother as well. So both your parents both of them were biological to you, or was one step,
No,
or both
they're both
biological?
biological. Both of them are no longer in my life. I had to actually get in touch with the police because my biological dad wouldn't leave me alone. So he's told that if he contacts me again, he will go to jail.
So it was very controlling on anything you did. Like, did he not? They didn't even let you be a kid at that point at all. It was just a lot of
I
control
wouldn't
even
think that
back then.
was like controlling. They didn't care. And once my biological sister was born, it was like she was front and center. And I was just like the odd one out all the time. Like they would leave and go shopping together, Courtney and Susan. They would do all that stuff together. So I kind of like just kind of got left out a lot.
So is there a strange from your sister as well?
We're not close like we typical sisters would be. Like, I really learned in the past while that it is very important to create your own family and make family whatever it needs to be. I really feel that family is not defined by blood. Like it was the three people that came to the trial every day that stood by my side that I consider to be my family. And they are the three most amazing people. Chelsea has stepped into the role as my sister. Patty has just been an amazing support system for me. And so has Jane. All three of them are so incredible. And I don't think that I would have gotten through that difficult time without their love and support.
You were saying that family isn't always blood. Have you always felt that way going back to a child? Did you sense that as a child, or did you just feel that way
Well,
as you got
I no,
older?
no, like I had my aunt and I had my cousins. They were always, and my grandparents like pretty much raised me growing up. I mean, they taught me how to read, they taught me how to write. But as I get older, I really realize that your close friends become your family. You know, I really feel like family is the people that you can count on, that are always going to be there for you, that are never going to judge you. And whether that's blood related or not, it shouldn't make a difference.
When you were seeing like happier families or kids being treated differently when you were a child, did you feel that sense of missing out? Did you know you like was it there, or did
No,
you just
not
thought
not
it was the
not
same?
Not really. Like, especially in high school, like I kind of just did my own thing. Like I was on student council, I was student senate. I was involved in every charity going. I think I really just kept myself so busy with things and different projects that I really didn't think about all of that stuff. Like when I left my house, I didn't think about any of it. I just went and started doing my own things that would make me happy, that would bring me up in life.
So you just left whatever trauma that was happening at home when you were younger, when you went to school?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
I just, what made me happy and what inspired me every day to go on is giving back to other people. And in grade 9, 10, 11, 12, I became a peer tutor and I would help people get their credits. I would just do a lot of rewarding and impactful things that would bring up that self confidence for myself.
So now you felt that way through grammar school, junior high. Now, with the whole thing with the high school, did it start in high school, junior high, or was it even in regular school with the pushing into lock stuff like that, or that was that more high school?
That was more high school. Yeah, that was more high school. Our high school was kind of like the movie Mean Girls almost. Like it was very cliquey. All the different groups had their own tables. There was like the popular people, there was the nerds. Like it was very, very cliquey.
When you went to high school, had home gotten worse by then, or was it basically the same throughout school and all that? Was just basically the
Uh,
same. You just
I
got
would
older.
say I would say it was the same. Like they fought a lot um back and forth. He left and took a vacation and ran out on us and took all the money and it was just so much drama all the time. All the time.
So in high school, you said you were picked on or bullied rather, right? Picked on is a
Yep,
little different
yep.
than bullied. Bullied's a lot worse. So was there? It was basically pushing into lockers. Was there anything else? Or was it mainly like that type of stuff being pushed around, basically?
Yep, being called names, all that.
Did it? Did you ever find out where it really came from the other people? Was there something misunderstanding, or was it just they were just mean and that was it?
They were just mean catty girls. That was high school. Like I said, it was very clicky. A lot of drama.
Went to college. Did you have any problems in college at all, or did it just
No,
calm down?
college it was like total opposite. But that's when I became like I partied a lot in college. I won't lie, because I never partied. I never even drank alcohol in high school. I was very much like that goody two shoes. And college came along, and I was just partying all the time. Sometimes skipping class, not going, just being irresponsible. I never got the chance to go to my high school graduation party or do any of that stuff. So I kind of just went off in college and did my own thing. I was 18 years old at the time. I had not been home Um, I was in a different city, so I had all this freedom, and it was a lot, and it was overwhelming at times, and I was in charge of my own life now. So it was a huge difference.
Was it because you felt free of all the other people that were treating you the way they were? Since you went somewhere where nobody knew anything about that, you felt more freer?
I think so. Yeah, actually, it's funny. I one of my roommates I actually knew from a student senate. She went to a different high school, but her and I became roommates, and then we actually lived together second, third year of college. So yeah, it was great. I had a great time in college, except for the fact that I met somebody and I started dating them, and they became extremely abusive. But other than that, college, I made a lot of really good friends. I will say that.
When you talk about are you the person that you're talking about, the abusive one, was that the one where that all had happened with
No,
the yeah. Oh,
no, 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 no.
so that's something completely different. Now,
Yeah, that was
when
my
you
first relationship ever in college.
oh, so there was nothing
There was
before
no,
then, or
no dating, no nothing. Nope.
so when you got to college, what did you major in college, if you don't mind me asking?
My first year, I went to school for radio broadcasting, and then I kind of dropped out of that, and I went into early childhood education.
Yeah. How did you enjoy your classes and all that? Like being having friends and it being different for you. Did you feel more enjoyment in education rather than what high school was? Did you still enjoy high
Well,
education?
in high school, I was the goody two shoes, right? Like I made honor roll and all of that stuff. Like I would spend all my lunch breaks doing work. So college, no, I became like the opposite of like I'd be like skipping classes. I became a completely different person from what I was in high school. I mean, I was still like giving back and helping out the community and volunteering and doing things like that. But no, I became quite the partier.
Did you expect to be the way you were in college? Did you expect to be free, or did you think it was just going to be like high school, something's going to go wrong and that was it?
Yeah, yeah. I thought that some like it was scary. Like you're out on your own. You're in this big world at 18 years old. You're left to make all your own choices. So it was a very different experience. And
Yeah.
it was scary because like there were times where I was homesick. There were times where wanted to go to my grandparents or see my aunt, and like I was in a different city. So it was a whole other experience.
You still keep in touch with your biological grandparents and your aunt, then they're your
Oh
family
yeah,
for life.
they're amazing. My grandfather passed away though when I was in high school, and that took a huge toll on my life because he was pretty much like my dad. Like he'd pick me up from school every day, like taught me how to read, taught me how to play all these different board games. Like we did everything together. So I felt completely lost, and shortly after his funeral, I became bulimic, and I just it was a really rough go after he passed.
Yeah. So he was basically what you wished your biological father and mother were. That's what your grandparents were.
My grandparents were everything. They were incredible. Like they make us like dinner every single night, do our homework with us. It was they were just incredible. Like they went above and beyond time and time again.
Which side are they, father or mother?
Mother.
Are you surprised how they were to you, or did you expect because your
No,
mother was like
no,
that?
no, I was not surprised that they were like I was very close with my whole mother's side of the family, extremely close with all of them. They were great, but I think like my biological father, I think he really like was very controlling with my biological mom, and I think he really like controlled her. Like he always had to like make the plans to like what we were doing on the weekends, and like everything was about him. Like he was a true narcissist.
So it wasn't about family, it was about just what he wanted.
Always about him and what he wanted, what he needed. He never once thought about my mother at all, and so it was hard.
Did you notice that with her too, that she was Was she being mistreated very badly by your father, or was it just back and forth between both of them?
I feel like sometimes it was a lot of his doings, to be honest, like taking off on the family and then showing up random. Like he was just so inconsistent and like you never knew what he was going to do, if he was going to take off one day and stay gone or come back. And he was just a very toxic individual, and
How
everything was needed to be about him.
when he was gone, how was it?
Oh, it was peaceful. It was great. It was really great. But when she would take him back, I think that kind of drew a lines in our relationship, and it like that kind of just seemed to like push her and I further and further apart because and it pushed her family apart from her too because they weren't a fan of him. They didn't like him, and I really feel like he would always apologize and be like, oh, I'm gonna be better and this and that, and like just gave excuses time and time again. But his actions and words never aligned.
Did he do that going back to when you were a kid, coming and going, or did it when you're in high school?
That was, I believe, in high school. He had a heart attack, and he called us up one night, and he made us all go to the hospital because he said that he was going to die, which he did not. And then shortly after that, she was doing everything for him, and going to the hospital, and and then after that, as soon as he got out of the hospital, is when he took off to Florida and needed a vacation. Yeah, just took off
Did
without a word.
did was he able to fool a lot of people to think that he's a good father rather than, or he
Yeah,
didn't even bother?
oh yeah, he definitely did. He joined this like church group and like, tried to have like the the dad title, I guess. I feel like, there are parents in this world that really want the title but don't take the responsibility of being an actual parent.
It wasn't like a consistent thing that they do things all the time, which is that one thing they did and they want praise forever for it. It's the best thing they ever did. They're that great of a parent, even though they're not. Is that how kind of how he was, or your mother too, or just him?
That's how he was. He was just everything was like I said, everything was about him and what he needed, what he wanted, his happiness. It was never about anybody else. He would do things like spare of the moment. He would just decide to do something. He would never think about the things that he does. He was very reckless. Like I said, he jumped from like job to job to job. And, there were times where he just put so much stress on um, my biological mother. He just put so much stress on her. And he would go out and he would just spend money like it was water, like just so recklessly. And like, yeah,
So she paid for everything then. She must have paid for everything majority of the time.
majority of the time she did. Yeah.
So now in college, did you talk to them a lot at all, or was there no conversation at all? No.
He showed up one time when I was in college and I was going to class, and then had a freak out because I wasn't going to hang out with him. But I never asked him to come and show up. It was the most random thing. Like, yeah. There were times where he contacted me, and then I would contact the police. I remember my biological sister calling me up because her and I were talking um, often. And she's like, "Did you hear what's going on?" And I said, "No." And he like had thrown recycle boxes like across. They had moved out, I guess, into a new house, and he had recently left. And I guess he showed up, and he has major anger issues, and threw recycling boxes at them from across. Yeah, he
Uh,
is a very toxic individual.
so your conversation with him, talking to both of them, waned or got less and less in college as college went on.
I would say so, yeah.
college was when you said you had your first relationship.
Correct. My first kiss, my first everything.
Okay, so and the very first one you said was abusive? The very
It was
first one?
it was extremely abusive. He shoved me into walls. There are a couple of times where he worked at Staples, so he had these like knives or whatever to cut boxes, and he would threaten me with those knives. I actually left him because he was cheating on me with a girl that he brought to our house that I made dinner for, because it was a coworker of his, and I ended up watching them make out on the balcony um, while I was there. So they weren't subtle about it, and I was in the middle of my final exams and everything, going through all that, and somehow I passed every single exam. I don't know how to this day, and one of my friends took me in.
So when you saw them doing that, did you walk out or were you just too stunned or
Oh no, I lost it. I lost it.
how long after being together did the abuse start?
It started early on. Like I should have never moved in with him. Like I ended
Oh.
up getting a place with him, and I don't know, I just had this like hope that like I've always been like a fixer, and I feel like that I could fix him, and eventually things would just get better. But they did.
After that relationship, were there other abusive relationships or was that the one?
There was that one. There were a couple of relationships that were just, they weren't anything serious. They were just like couple dates. So nothing really after that.
So now how long now did all this happen in college with what happened with your friend or was
No,
that
no. That was in 2016. I had graduated in 2013 from college. And then my event happened to me in 2016. But before that event happened, I was living on my own now. I had a job. I was actually working three jobs at the time to pay off my student debt. And one of them was at Good Life, and that's where I met Will.
and Will is your was your boyfriend at the time and your friend's name was
Nathan.
say it again, sorry.
Nathan was Will's best friend. They were
Oh,
friends.
okay. Okay, they were best friends.
I met Nathan because of Will. Will introduced me to it.
Okay.
They were like,
How did that relationship start? I mean, sorry, like who asked who out? Like what that type of thing.
well, we met at Good Life, and then we just like ran up a conversation. We're like, oh, like we should go out for a drink sometime, and like that's kind of how it all started.
So it just started as a casual thing and then just progressed after a while.
Yes,
How was the relationship before any of that? Was it good? Was it fun? Was it
it was just like it was something like fun. Like I wouldn't call it like serious. Like we would just like hang out, have dinners together, and that was it. Wasn't like anything majorly serious. I did get pretty close to him though, and he ended up going to out west for business things. So that hurt a lot. And he would text me from time to time, but it was hard, right? Like long distance usually just doesn't work.
so
Not
so be, so it looked like it was possible to go farther if none of that happened. It could have gone into something much more serious.
not after he moved out west. No,
No, so there was no long distance. You would nothing like that. It was just pretty much once they're farther away, it's
there was
a
like a
lot harder.
text. Yeah, there was like a text here and there, but like nothing that made me think about moving out there or anything like that. Like I said, it was just fun.
So did you and Nathan remain friends pretty much after he
No,
moved away?
so no. So Will introduced me to Nathan at a business thing before Will moved away. And that's how I met him. Nathan and I didn't start talking again until Will had come back from out west.
Okay.
That's when Nathan and I started talking. Because I got on the phone with him one night and just thanked him for like everything he was doing for Will. So Will had returned. I want to say it was almost a year from being out west, and he returned. He showed up at my work. Actually, surprised me. I had no idea he was coming back, And there he was. And then he was staying with me at the time at my apartment and staying with Nathan at his apartment. So he was kind of like going back and forth because obviously, like, he had come back from out west. He didn't have a place to stay or anything like that. So we were both trying, like, Nathan and I would give the shirt off our backs for anyone. We always wanted to help people. So that was our common interest, is giving back and helping people as much as we could. But no, so Will was staying with the both of us back and forth. And then, yeah, I thanked Nathan for everything that he was doing because they were like brothers. They were inseparable. I mean, they were best friends for 10 plus years. And
So
like Nathan would invite him to every single family dinner and bring Will over to his family's house and made sure that he had food. And
before any, was there any anger or any arguments before, like at each other at all? Like any hard feelings? Like, because it sounds
I
like they were
mean,
just friends and
have like the casual like argument about cleaning the apartment, but nothing like extreme. Like there was nothing that made me think for a second that Will was a cold-blooded murderer. There was nothing that would made me like, he went to school for police foundations and criminology. So I there was no abuse. Like there was times where he was very flirtatious with like other girls and stuff like that that kind of really bothered me. um, but nothing like abuse wise.
so he wasn't overly mean or like seemed aggravated all the time or anything like that towards him.
Nope, never said anything about him and Nathan getting in any kind of fight other than like, the apartment and like, okay, you need to do the dishes, you need to do the like that kind of stuff, but no, nothing that would make me think that he would do something so horrific.
Okay, um, if you're okay with going back to that night or day, what
Sure.
was it like? Was there anything, a sense of anything at all, just
I don't
wrong at
have
all?
any sense that anybody's going to take anybody's life. Um, However, I was at a Good Life party that night, celebrating my boss who had gotten a new job. And Will and I were texting back and forth on and off. He had asked me for money for a rent because I guess he had found an apartment, but he wanted to move in with some girl. So obviously, like, I wasn't going to give him money to like go and move in with some girl. I don't think he liked that answer, but he didn't seem like malicious about it or anything. And then, like I said, talking back and forth, and then I finally went to bed, and it was 5 in the morning that I got a call from him, saying, and I was the last person to actually talk to Nathan that night on the phone. Nathan and I had a conversation um, prior that same night. And then I got a call from Will at 5 in the morning, and he said, "Will you come over?" And I mean, that wasn't anything out of the ordinary because our schedules were so different that we would get together. Like, he would call me at 1 in the morning and be like, "Oh, can I come over?" Like, so I went, got myself ready, brushed my teeth, and went over. I waited downstairs for about, I want to say, like almost 40 minutes before he even came downstairs. So I thought, like, this is like, I texted him and I'm like, I'm gonna go home. Like, this is silly. I'm not gonna stand out here and wait. Luckily, it was summer, so it wasn't cold. Finally, somebody opened and I went into the lobby and sat there, and he had finally come down, and I noticed like his toe like had blood on it, and I was like, oh, like, what did you do? He's like, oh, I just, I cut myself. And then another friend of his showed up, but I said, you know what? He just came off of a night shift. So I said, you know what? You go home. I said, Will and I are going to hang out. And he was like, oh, okay. So, and one of the elevators weren't working, so he didn't really want to stay around. So Will and I went up to the 18th floor, And he's like, "Are you sure you want to come in? Are you sure you want to come in?" And I said, "Yeah." I'm like, "I don't care that your place is like messy." He's like, "Well, I know your place is so clean." And like, I'm like, "No, like you called me. I'm already here. Let's go." And so he opened the door, locked all the locks, and when I got in there, it was covered, just covered in blood.
It
And
was it's just everywhere, the whole entire
there was
apartment or just a room?
everywhere. There was blood stain, like your feet could stick to the floor. That's how much blood there.
Wow. You heard the door lock. Did you see everything first and then hear the door lock, or as soon as you walked a few steps, you heard the
So I
locks?
walked in first. Will walked in behind me, and he locked all the doors. I went into the apartment first, and I was like, "Oh my God, like what's going on here?" And I asked like, "Where's Nathan?" And he locked all the doors, like all the locks right when after he came through. So like I said, I came in first, he came in next, and then locked the doors. And he said, "You're not going anywhere." And I was thinking, that's it. This is it. Like my life is done at that. Like once I asked him where Nathan, and he's like, "Here, I'll take you to him," and like showed me the body of the deceased in the bathtub, and he said, "I'm already going away for one account of murder. Why not make it two?" He said, "You're next."
So at that point, what was your reaction? I know you felt a certain way or thought a certain way. What what was your movement next? Like, what was your thought to do in that situation next?
I honestly, I knew from watching crime shows, because I watched a lot of Criminal Minds and stuff like that before this. And I knew I had to, this sounds really weird, but I knew I had to be cool, calm, and collective. I couldn't show him fear or I would have died. So I just like kept a normal conversation. I kept telling him like all the potential that he had and just like using a lot of like positive language and just trying to stay as calm as I possibly could. Um, I was in the apartment for 2 hours, and he sexually assaulted me. He pulled down my pants several times and said, "You can't tell me this doesn't feel good." He said, "I know I'm going away for a long time, so I need to have sex." He pointed a knife to my back at one point and said, "This will be the easiest way to kill you. It'll be the most less painful way." Like I didn't think I had a hope in hell. Um, and
What
he wanted to clean up the blood scene. Like that was his number one goal. And I said to him, I said, from studying police foundations, well, I said, "You know that they're going to shine a light, even if we cleaned up this whole apartment. They're going to shine a light, and it's going to be there." But he was adamant, like adamant, on cleaning up that apartment. That was his only goal, and he wanted me to help him do it. And I said, "No." I said, "Cleaning up blood is a crime. I'm not going to do it." Well, he didn't like that, no. So he began to strangle me. And
how did you get away from that?
I just kept begging him to stop.
And
And then finally, I dropped to the floor. I reached for my Gatorade, trying to like catch my breath. And he threw sponges at me and said, "You better start cleaning up, or that's going to happen to you again."
do, do you think you were kept alive for to help him? Do you think that's what it was to clean up, and then after that, he was gonna do it?
I have no idea what was running through his head. I couldn't tell you. It was 2 hours of being in the apartment, and I ran down 18 flights of stairs. I knew the elevator, one of them was broken, and I didn't have time to wait. So I ran down 18 flights of stairs, and I was shown actually in the trial that he was like seconds away from meeting me in that lobby. And I ran out so fast that I then went across the street and I saw people get into a car, and I asked them if they would take me to the police station, and they said no. So then I saw a variety store, and so I went in there and I said, I need you, like my whole shirt's covered in blood. And I said, I need to call 911. And they're like, oh, go outside and use our payphone. And like, go outside and use the payphone. Are you kidding me? So
I don't understand that. I mean, if you're covered in blood, either you did something or you're a victim of something.
a
Do you know what I
survivor.
mean? So yeah, so if you survive something, you're running and you're talking about going to the police, I would assume you must be the person that's the one that's the victim in that situation who ended up surviving it. I would think that the first thing you would do is someone call 911, but
They no, they wanted me to go outside and use the payphone. And so the guy came out. He's like, in case, he comes back, I'll go outside with you while you use the payphone. So I'm like in complete panic state, thinking he's going to track me down and find me. And so
and,
I'm on the phone with a 911 operator, and four police show up, and they send the other two cars to the apartment, the location where I gave them. And then the other two cars was a male and female. They showed up and they read me my rights, and they took me in and they told me that I could leave at any time, but I was like, no, no, no. Like, I'm going to. They wanted me to go to the hospital, so I'm like, no, I rather give my statement first. And so they had paramedics come and check me out, and my heart rate and blood pressure and everything was just insane. Um, so then I went into the room with the detectives, and I was there pretty much the entire day. Then I had to go in and they had to swab me. So I had to strip down in front of female police officers, take off all my clothes, and they swabbed every spot of my body. Um, so I was there for a really long time, and then the next after that I was just so tired. So the next day I did go to the hospital. They had to stick a camera up my nose. I think it took them like 3 times to stick this camera up my nose because it was the most uncomfortable thing, to make sure that there was no damage done, because it is vital for anybody that has been strangled to immediately go to the hospital and get it checked out, because there can be severe damage. So I luckily I just had like a fracture, so there wasn't anything major. Obviously, the police asked me and they said, "Can we please have like the copies of your appointment when you went to the hospital?" And I said, "Absolutely." So the doctors handed them all copies of that. And there's something too that when you go through something horrific, that your brain like forgets certain things. And so there was like a day had passed that I was with detectives, so I went the following day and I said, okay, like things are starting to like come back to me now. And so I sat down with them again and we went through everything all over again. It was a lot. It was very overwhelming, and I didn't have a debit card. I had no ID, nothing, because I had brought in a purse with me, and I had left everything in the purse, and I had left the purse there, and that was like evidence they had to bag, right? So I had to like wait to like get everything, and it was very like I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I I lived in fear. Like I had to like call the police and like ask them, "Is are you sure he's in custody? Are you sure?" Like I needed that reassurance. Like I kept going on in my mind that he was like out and free and going to kill me for good this time.
but they did get him though, right? Like right after that, he was there.
So he was actually on his way out. When the police got him, he had packed a bag with his passport in it, but said to the police that he wasn't going to run away. He was only going to collect his belongings, which we all know that is.
Did he plead or no? It was a trial. There was a trial, right?
It was a trial, but he did try to go for manslaughter. He said what he did was an accident. So I will tell you right now, the trial happened in 2018, and it was almost worse than that morning. I found out new details that I had to process. It was very overwhelming. It was a 2 week trial. So I had to take 2 weeks off of work. And I remember finding out that Nathan was beaten to death. This was 2 years after the incident. I had found out that he beat Nathan with his hands, beat him. And Nathan was alive for 2 to 3 hours and he watched him die. But you wanted to plead manslaughter. Manslaughter is an accident. In the sheer fact that, like, he was alive for 2 to 3 hours and you didn't think to call 911. And then I found out that he had taken a naked selfie of himself covered in blood in the shower with Nathan in the shower as a trophy, like something he was like proud of.
Well, unfortunately, people don't plead out right away or plead to guilty or anything, where then you have to sit through the trial and find things out that you'd rather not know. Are you glad to have known what really happened, or do you wish some stuff you weren't aware of?
Oh no, I want to be aware of absolutely everything. I mean, I wish that it all came to me at once, but I understand like the system has to do their job. Like it was really tough because it was 2 years after that I'm now finding out all these new details.
Were you expecting new details, or did you just think that what happened, what you think happened, or did you just think no details? It happened the way you think, and that's it.
No, I knew that there was going to, like, the police told me, like, they knew what had happened, but they couldn't let me know everything
Oh,
because the investigation was ongoing, right? So they couldn't tell me. And because there was like a pre-trial before the actual trial, they didn't want any of my statements to get twisted or anything like that, right? So I couldn't even stay for the full pre-trial. I could only stay for the time that I was on the stand for the pre-trial. The trial, I could stay for the full thing, but I couldn't hear anybody else's statements or anything else.
so you must have felt anger through the whole entire thing. Was it anger, sadness,
I wouldn't say
betrayal? Like, was a
anger.
lot?
I would say like it was a lot of anxiety. It was a lot of anxiety, like wondering what really happened in the apartment, wondering what happened before I got there. Like it was a lot of like mind questions that I would go through and ask myself.
When the trial was over, how did you feel? Did you feel justice was served, or
Oh, absolutely not did I feel justice was served. I don't even call our system a justice. I call it the failure system. It fails people. Like he can apply for day parole in 2028. There's no, like, the fact that you can get double time and a half served is just disgusting.
I would assumed like 50 years, 35 years at least.
No, no.
Oh, wow. Well, this happened in Canada, Britain,
Canada.
Canada. I'm surprised. I would assumed. I mean, he did what he did. He let him lay there for a couple of hours. That's you
But
would
look
assume.
at look at Carla Homolka. She murdered her own sister, and she's out, and she has kids of her own. They're like you look at all these criminals that are like now walking the streets. This is why our world is not safe.
I can't believe it's just I would at least assume 30, 35, 40 years. So he got what, 10, 12, something like that?
14, but double time and a half served. So yeah, pretty much you can say 10. Yeah.
Wow. That's awful. He should be there much longer.
So he can apply for day parole. It doesn't mean he'll get it, but he can apply for day parole in 2028 and then full eligibility in 2030. If you take a life, your life should be taken in the sense that you get to spend the rest of your life behind bars. It should never be, oh, maybe he can get, there should never be a maybe. The sheer fact that he could get out of prison and have a family and have kids, but meanwhile, you took that right from somebody else. That's what I have a hard time with. There's no justice. It's called failure system.
Yeah, when he gets out, because you're going to be alive when he gets out. Are you worried about that too?
But this has been like, even since he's been incarcerated, this is still ongoing. Like, everybody thinks when the trial happens and after the trial happens that it's all done, it's all over with. But it's not. I had to see him this past March video via because he wanted temporary escorted access so he can go to church. And now he's just this religious person. And now he was born in Guatemala. And now he's claiming to be Aboriginal. It's sick. It is so disgusting that our system caters to the criminals and does not cater whatsoever to the survivor. And Nathan's poor parents that have lost a son, they never get another Christmas with their son. They never get another birthday, another Thanksgiving. So why should Will get that opportunity? And the fact too, like, he has so many rights. He can apply for a prison transfer anytime he wants. So right now he's in Nova Scotia, but he can apply to come back to Ontario anytime. It doesn't mean he'll get it, but he can apply. And
So
so, yeah,
the United States laws and Canada laws are that much different?
they're so different. There's no death penalty here. Nothing. It's just,
Wow.
our system is just, yeah.
I
It,
don't. You were the one who suffered through with along with Nathan. I'm sure you're worried about what could happen. It
Oh,
just sucks.
110% I am worried about what's going to happen. You don't think that he's sitting there manipulating everybody and saying he's this religious person? Meanwhile, I'm sure he's going to come out and the first thing he's going to want to do is go to the bar and grab a drink and then, who knows, come after me, come after Nathan's family. Like, because we all helped put him away. I mean, I'm the one who turned him in and testified against him. So I'm sure that he would want to revenge something with me.
Did When you were in court, did you think justice was going to be fully served?
No, I knew, like, listening to all these other crime stories. Like, I grew up not far from where the Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo stuff happened. So I knew from hearing these other stories that there wasn't going to be this amazing justice. I already kind of knew what was in store. I know that prisoners, they go in, they get out. Like, and it's disgusting. Like, I think to myself that if you're a gang member or if you are, you stole something from a store, sure, I believe in rehabilitation in that sense. But when it comes to child pedophiles and murderers, I think they only learn how to manipulate this system. They don't get any better, they get worse. And they let people out and walk the streets. And then they wonder why there's so much crime happening.
When did you start to think about writing a book? After the trial?
No, it was actually during COVID that I was talking to a friend and she was going through some stuff too, and she had said, Ashley, like, you should write a book, like, with everything. Like, you have so much stuff to, like, talk about. And I didn't think anything of it. And then COVID happened and I was like, you know what, maybe she's right. I have all this, like, I still had to do some work from home, but I had a lot of free time. So I was like, why not write a book? And this book is, I wanted it to be relatable. I wanted it to be a teaching tool to other people. I didn't want just some statistics and facts, and I wanted to make it personal. I wanted people to be like, I relate to that. I've been through that. I experienced that. So this book focuses on strength and how we don't really think about strength until we're put in a situation where we're forced to use our strength, right? I also talk about mental health because for so long my doctor had done a PTSD test with me, and I said, PTSD? I said, I'm not a war vet. I said, I just didn't fight a war. And they're like, Ashley, it's not just military people, it's like people that have had trauma. And I was like, oh. So I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. I've now recently been diagnosed with complex PTSD as well. So that's when, like, anything minor that happens in my life, it feels like 10, you feel it 10 times more. You feel so heightened. Um, so I wrote a chapter too that focuses on mental health. I wrote a chapter that focuses on domestic violence and talks about, like I said before, is when you get strangled to go seek a medical attention right away because it could leave everlasting damage. I also talk about in my book who I am today. I talk about the trial. I talk about the court. Like I was in court for probably, I started in April going into the courthouse on every day. I would go in and I would go through all my statements. I'd have to watch my videos. I'd have to listen to my 911 call. So it was, I felt like I spent a lot of time at the courthouse, to be completely honest. And I will tell you, you know, I still keep in touch to this day with the police and with my court people. They were absolutely incredible. I had the best support team that I could possibly have.
That's good. I'm glad you at least had support and stuff. So, did your parents say contact you during any of that to show support or no?
Um, they did, but they began to, they're like, we can't eat, we can't sleep, we feel so stressed. Like, they turned it and made it about them, and I was like, yeah, I can't. And then, like, I said some stuff to like my biological sister, and she like kind of broke my trust, and I was like, yeah, I can't. Like, I need a support network. I don't need judgment. I don't need, and like my biological mom said to me, I'll never forget it. She was like, I haven't said I told you so yet. I'm like, all right, really? Like, that's not support. Like
Yeah.
people that are going through horrific trauma need empathy and compassion and respect and kindness and love. And I just was like, okay, like at that point, I was just done. I didn't even tell my aunt and my grandma actually when the trial was happening. I didn't want to stress out my grandma any more than she needed to be stressed out. I mean, she's 91 now, right? Um, so I kind of just had my three support people that were in my corner, and I was good with that. I had a great, like I said, great police, great court representatives. So I had so much support, and the deceased's family also reached out to me, and they were so incredible. They were so empathetic. They were so caring. To this day, I still keep in touch with them. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how thankful and grateful I am to the deceased's family. They have really stepped up and been in my corner 110%.
Were you surprised by that, or did you think because of the type of people they are, Nathan was, that they would probably be there for you too?
Oh, 100%. I knew that they raised such an amazing, incredible son that they would be in my corner too.
Yeah. What was the moment where you felt you could write the book? I know you said you talked about COVID, but what was in your mind at the time where you're like, you know what, I can do this, I can help others, I can really get through writing
I
a
feel
book.
like I had a lot of stuff that I was still carrying with me. And I felt like, and it's crazy because before I even wrote the book, I knew the title. I knew the title before I even started writing. I knew it had to be something with strength. And one night in bed is when I have all my thoughts because my mind doesn't shut off. And I was like, oh yeah, like finding strength through tragedy is going to be the name of it. And I just started writing. And like, as I was writing, I was like, okay, this is going to be chapter one. This is going to be, like, I knew how I wanted the process to go. I knew what I wanted to talk about layering effects of trauma. I wanted to talk about the healing. I wanted to talk about going through it. Um, so I just made it, like I said, as relatable as I could to other people that work, because this is not just an Ashley situation. This is a worldwide epidemic. There are survivors of trauma every single day around the world, nationwide, countrywide. So I think it's very important to talk about this stuff, and not to talk about it from like, oh, I need attention standpoint, but to talk about it so we can come together and we can maybe somehow change these laws. And maybe by sharing my story, somebody else will be courageous enough to share their story. Like, I want to be that teaching lesson for other people. I want other people to be like, yeah, like, if she can get through it, so can I want that positive element that, yes, you can go through something so horrific, but you can turn it around and you can make it into something where you're knowing that you're giving back and helping others. Like, I had a mom reach out to me from the States, and her son was just a witness to a homicide as well. And I sent her just all these links to like support her son. And she asked me what she could do. And I gave her every single possible support network in her city. And that's what it's all about for me. It's all about helping other people go through their trauma, and just be that listening ear for them, not be anything judgmental, just listen. So here's the main reason to why I wrote the book. So when I went to the police station, one of the officers said to me, before we ask you any questions, I need you to make us a promise. And I said, what? Make you a promise? And he's like, yeah, promise us you won't turn to the streets for drugs, sex, prostitution, etc. And that really stood out to me in that moment. That's when I knew, like, I have to use my story to help somebody else. And now, like, I see it all the time in my city. I see people, shooting up and everything like that. And like, my mind goes to a whole different perspective now. It goes, what trauma did they go through to think that putting a needle in their arm every day is going to get them through? Like, I have so much love and empathy and compassion for these people that I see out there. I saw a 14-year-old girl. She was like, she literally had Peter Pan. She was totally out of it. And like, I called an ambulance and I stayed with her until paramedics got there, because there was no way that I could just leave and not do anything. Like, my heart really goes out to these people that are suffering. And, it's because they've probably been through something horrific that they thought that was their best coping outlet. So the detective that said that to me, he really opened my eyes to see like all the heartache that people go through on a day-to-day basis, where people don't have those support networks like I did. Like, I can tell you right now, I was so blessed and so fortunate and so grateful to have such amazing support system in place. Like, I had so many people rally around me. I had Facebook messages. I had people calling me. It got to the point where it was overwhelming, but I'm still to this day grateful for every single person that took the time to be there and support me.
Glad that you survived what you survived, and I'm glad that you're still going. And do you feel more happier about things compared to years before?
I wouldn't say happier. I would say that, like, I have a new chapter in my life, but that other chapter has not. That chapter of will never be closed. I will have to deal with him for the rest of my life until either I die or he dies. I still like get parole packages. It's a whole different chapter now. It's dealing with like the parole process and dealing with like the prison and stuff like that happens. I think it was not last year, but the year before, he wanted a CT scan right before Christmas. So now, like, because of my mental health and my complex PTSD, now I think when it gets closer to Christmas every year, I'm like, what's it gonna be what's it gonna be this time? Like, I'm constantly checking the mailbox and like wondering and worrying about it. And I've had some nightmares recently about him. So it still plays in my mind. I mean, it's something you're never ever going to forget, but it's about learning to live life again. So I have a boyfriend now. I have a dog, as you saw before,
Yeah, I saw
Bill.
it all. Yeah.
Um, and I have amazing kids in my life. So, like, I'm incredibly grateful and I'm incredibly humble for everything that I have. And I try to, like, look at the boyfriend, look at the kids, look at the dog, and think, you know what, like, I'm here, I survived, and now it's time for me to live my life again. And like, I use different coping methods. Like, I touch base with my counselor, and then I go to the gym and work out. For me, like, I will tell you right now, the gym probably saved my life. Um, in October of what was it? October of 2016, I actually tried to kill myself, and then looking back on it, I think, how selfish could I have been to try to kill myself when the deceased needed my testimony, my statements to get, I mean, I wouldn't call it justice, like I said, the process, if you want to call it that. And the gym, like, going back to the gym literally was like a lifesaver for me. It gave me something in my day to do. It gave me something to look forward to. And it wasn't just to go to the gym and, like, get these big muscles. It was to release my stress. It was a great emotional coping method. It was a great mental coping method. It helped me in ways that I couldn't even begin to describe to you. To, like, sit there with my music on and just be in that moment. Just think about, okay, I'm gonna do bicep curls next, and then I'm gonna do chest press, then I'm gonna do leg press. Like, it was just my way of coping and my way of dealing with everything, and it was amazing. Like, I still go to the gym, I still work out to this day, and you know what, I love it.
That's good. At least you seem to be happier, which is good. Like I said, and you seem to be in much better place for you and stuff.
It takes
So
a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Do I have setbacks? Absolutely. Am I guarded at times? Absolutely. Uh, do I struggle from day to day? Absolutely. Am I perfect? No. Am I still learning to process my feelings and emotions in a healthy way? Absolutely. Like, I'm ongoing. I'm ongoing every single day to be a better person. Like, I don't think that I'm perfect by any means. I think that I still have tons of work to do. I feel like you're never truly over it. You're never truly going to be healed, but it's just about living your best life day to day. And a lot of people think that that mindset is messed up when you just live hour by hour, minute by minute, or day to day. But for someone that saw their life flash before their eyes, it's okay to live day by day, because I know tomorrow's not promised. Like, I'm sure Nathan actually had plans to go and see his family that afternoon. His dad had come to the apartment to pick him up and saw all police cars outside, but the police couldn't tell him anything. So that's why I live my life day to day, because they had plans, but those plans didn't make it. So I feel like it's okay if you need to take the time that you need. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to live hour by hour, minute by minute. As long as you just keep living and keep going on and keep moving forward, there's nothing wrong with that mindset. As long as you're not stuck, you just keep going. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this podcast with me, because I truly believe that it is important to share my story, because I know that so many people are going through horrific trauma. I know that this is not just an Ashley situation. The advice that I would give anybody going through this is to never ever give up, because you are a survivor, you are a warrior, you are courageous, you are brave, and you are more than enough. And people really need to start hearing those positive words. Like, no one wants to be called, oh, there goes the victim. People need to start with positive language and uplifting people whose self esteem is so low. They need to use positive language and tell these people, you are a survivor. You have so much strength. That's where people need to step up and take action and help bringing these people up and not, oh, that poor girl. And like, people really need to think about their words before they say them.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And I know it was, very, very scary for what you went through, and to come on and talk about it, I do appreciate it. I very much do. Um,
Absolutely, 110%.
uh, all right, Ashley, thank you so much for it. I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, this is Ashley Michelle, the author of Finding Strength Through Tragedy, and thank you again for being with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking the time.